Yeah, let me do a little screen share here. Pop this up and we'll walk through some stuff and we'll chat. We got a bunch of things to dive into and uncover and chat about. So yeah, first and foremost, make sure your chat settings are set to everyone down there in the chat. And yeah, that way everybody can see all of the awesome tidbits of info or questions or comments that you have. All right. Let's then get into
Oh, all the AI assistants are here. This is
welcome
nice.
AI.
Yeah. Come on in.
Welcome. Um we can do let's do some intros. I'll start. I'm Rob Shoestack. I am the head of music services at Mad Records Collective. Quick background on me. Michael likes to refer to me as the Forrest Gump of the music industry, as I've jumped around a bunch. Everything from an A&R at Atlantic Records. I worked at the Orchard for many years, helping to launch their creative licensing department. Worked at Primary Wave as a creative director on the publishing side of things, working with catalogs like Nirvana and Hall and Oates. I was the executive producer at a music house in New York City, working on some Super Bowl campaigns and producing things like the little Febreze jingle that you still hear today. I oversaw a international creative team doing music programming for hotels, retail, hospitality, all that fun stuff. Before then, moving on to launch my own creative agency called Ooze House of Music, which brought me to cross paths with Michael, where we both met at mastering.com. Michael is the GM. Sorry, I'm taking your bio, Michael.
That's all right.
And me creating and mentoring their sync program there. And then once Michael launched Mad Records, we jumped in with both feet,
Oh yeah.
and here we are. And that's me in a nutshell.
That's the tightest just background on you, Rob, that I've heard in our time together, which is
Yeah,
really
man.
nice.
Yeah, I got a
Pretty good.
stopwatch.
Yeah,
That's
no,
pretty,
it's get
Succinct.
yeah,
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank
it's
you.
getting trim. Uh yeah, I'll keep mine very brief. My name's Michael. I'm the founder of Mad Records. Mad Records is an artist collective that teaches business skills to artists, producers, and musicians. Um, My background is the exact opposite of Rob's. I had nothing to do with the music industry. I was a corporate bond trader on Wall Street for 3 years coming out of college. I quit that job in 2020 to launch an independent solo music career, right, right into COVID. Perfect time to launch a music career. Did that in 2020, spent a couple years promoting my music and releasing music, and just realized how broken the landscape was for independent artists, and how broken music promotion was, and just some of the crazy things that we as artists do to try and get our music out there that are kind of just the antithesis of what good business actually is. And so I took a step back from my artist career and I decided to launch Mad Records instead, which basically teaches artists how to approach their music careers like a proper business, teach them how to be basically entrepreneurs, CEOs of their own artist brand. And prior to launching Mad Records, as Rob said, I was the GM at mastering.com, an online production school. So that's where I kind of fell in love with the education side of things. And so all of it has kind of gotten thrown into the pot, all of these weird things that have created Mad Records. And so here we are today. And we're partnered with our good friends at Easy Song, who we've done many of these webinars together now at this point, and they've always been a blast. So I'll throw it over to Aaron. Aaron, what's going on?
oh man, anything and everything. No, guys, these are my favorite webinars. These are my favorite talks because what Rob and Michael come at it with the industry, it comes in from a different angle, and that's like exactly correlates with how easy song is. We've been clearing and licensing music since 2005. We have over 14,000 publishers and record label admins in our system. We've had to scale many licensing and clearance mountains over the last couple decades, and we help independent artists, we help companies, we help everyone in between, whatever the shape or size. If you ever have any type of music rights, any type of music needs, EasySong.com. You can actually work with live humans, not AI.
What?
And we also have to work with lots of humans at all the Sonys, Universals, Warner Chappells, BMGs, Disney. We got to work with all the majors, all the middle level publishers, and any type of licensing needs. So it's music rights education, really, and it's accessible. And we do free consultation. We do mechanical licensing. We also do custom licensing for anything that's like a creative project that needs direct rights holders permission. And then we even help out independent artists and labels with copyright, U.S. Copyright Office registration for your originals. So we know the indie artists well. We are a friend of the indie community, and Mad Records is just the perfect marriage for this. Or we're still kind of dating. We haven't quite got a ring on it, but we're getting serious.
It's getting pretty close, at this point.
Yeah, it's serious.
Aaron, you upset all the AI note takers with your comment. They're furiously taking notes that you guys are human led. It's not good.
Bring it on. I'm expecting it.
Well, let's jump on in. So we're going to cover a lot today, but the idea is we want everyone kind of walking away with a basic understanding of a few different things. And the overarching theme is really about just getting a basic foundational understanding of how certain things work. I'll talk a little bit more about it, this objective POV of really looking at our music and our music careers like a CEO would, and just kind of wrapping our arms around it. You don't have to be an expert in this stuff. You don't have to be an expert in music licensing, right? That's what Aaron and his team are for. That's what Easy Song is for. Okay, you don't have to be an expert in every facet of every area of the music industry. Okay, you can work with folks who support you along your way. That's why working with teams like Mad Records Collective, like Easy Song, helps to support it. But you do need a basic understanding of all of this stuff, because awareness is power. Right? It's going to empower you to really understand what it is you're doing with your music and gain that clarity to say, like, cool, I have a very clear idea of what I want to be doing. And I understand all of these pieces that impact it, that help me make better decisions to get towards my goal. Okay. That's kind of what we're talking about here. So I want to start with just a basic kind of definition of what is sync, right? What is sync licensing? What does it mean to work in this space? And it's really just simply distilled down to music that is created for or paired with visuals. That's it, right? Now, there are lots of nuanced pieces that go into this from the creative side and obviously from the licensing side, which we'll talk about today. But as a basic understanding, this is kind of a jumping off point that I want everybody to be able to walk away with, okay? There's the custom side of things, which is creating something custom for these visuals. And then there's the license side. You have a piece of music that already exists and you license it to exist with those visuals. This is kind of, again, simplified. And what you're doing is you're syncing that with any kind of media. So that's film, television, advertising, video games, social media content, podcasts, corporate videos, right? You think about all of the different places these can exist, and like corporate videos, recruiting videos, anything online where brands are advertising or brands are sharing a message. Again, music being synced with any kind of media and visuals, that's sync. Okay. Now, we have a basic understanding of what sync is. What is the goal of sync? Well, the goal of sync is to use music to harness that emotional power within music to enhance the creative of a visual product, right? We want to enhance that impact, that emotional connection that we're making with an audience. You as the artist, the company or the brand with their audience, okay? And really starting to kind of take in that idea of connecting with an audience, whether it's you on stage, audience in the crowd, or audience watching a video, audience watching a movie, a TV show, whatever it is, it's really about that connection point. Okay. And we're using music to deepen an emotional connection. We're using it to assist in telling a story, and we're using it to strengthen creative attention. Music is that powerful that it can do all of that stuff, that versatile, that powerful. Okay. So now we have this basic understanding of what this stuff is, right? Is it simplified? Is it distilled down? Totally. Do you need to get into the weeds of every facet of it? You don't have to. If you're curious about it, by all means, right? But with this basic understanding, we're going to kind of move forward. Okay. Any initial questions before I move on? One's in the chat if you guys are all with me. Moving along, we're cooking. Cool. I got one. Julie's with me. I appreciate it, Julie. Thank you. All right, there we go. Some more ones. Sounds good. So
there's a little bit of a lag there, Rob, for a second. I thought everyone was gone.
Yeah, everyone was just glazed over. Like,
yeah.
All right. So with this basic understanding, I want to talk about this concept that not all sync, not all opportunities are the same. And something that we talk about a lot in the Mad Records Collective is this idea that we have kind of three paths that we can follow. There's an artist path, there's a custom path, and there's a library path. We're going to do a quick look into all of them. But again, the big takeaway here is I talk with so many artists that are like, oh, I don't want to do sync because I'm not willing to sacrifice my art, or like, I'm not going to sell out to a brand, or I'm not going to write a song about, t-shirts because I don't want to write a song about t-shirts. You do not have to, right? Or similarly, I talk with artists who are like, tell me what lyrics I need to use in order to get synced. What kind of structure is mandatory so that my music gets synced? That's the other end of the spectrum, right? And while there are some, tips and tricks that help to make your music a little bit more palatable for music supervisors or editors, the idea is this underlining authenticity and back to what we were talking about, that emotional impact that you make with your music. Okay. So let's talk about the three paths really quickly. Starting off with the artist path. Okay. The artist path is for those of you who identify as, hey, I am a quote unquote real artist, right? I make music, I release music, I'm building an audience. Part of my plan involves maybe touring, maybe playing out, definitely releasing music, sharing with an audience, making an album, releasing the album, marketing around the album. Okay. That's kind of like your traditional artist path. And in this path, the music itself carries the identity. Okay. The song matters as a song. You matter as an artist. And I'm saying this because, again, this kind of dispels that myth that it's like, oh, I have to, write about sneakers in order to be in a sneaker commercial. On the artist path, your music works. Okay. It gets used in sync because it feels specific, authentic, and emotionally resonant. There's a clear emotional intention. So the more true you are to your artistry, the more clear you are with like what's authentic to you and how you want to express yourself musically and artistically, the better it's going to wind up working for you in sync. You don't have to proactively focus on sync and say, I have to create this for sync in order for it to work, in order to break into sync. What you do need to do is say, like, I understand who I am as an artist, and I understand how my music emotionally connects with an audience. Okay. This path is going to resonate with musicians who care about their personal expression. They want to make their art for the sake of making art and can see sync as kind of a peripheral part of their plan that supports their career, not replaces their career. Okay. That's a really important thing that I want you to remember. Okay. And the core business question we're asking here is, how does sync support what I'm already building? Right. Back to that idea that it's supporting it, not replacing it. And the answer there goes back to what the path is all about, is making music that's so emotionally clear and authentic that when the right opportunity, when the right piece of media comes along, it fits, right? The audience knows, the brand knows, the supervisor knows that it fits. Now, there are other pieces that go into this, right? And Aaron's going to talk about some of it, and the importance of understanding, can you clear your music? How easy is it to clear your music? What goes into making that an easy process? But at its start, it's about being emotionally available and saying, like, dude, I make music with a clear emotional intention for my audience, and I get what that's about. Cool. Does that resonate with everybody? Artists in the chat? I will take silence as a yes. All right. Moving along, right on. Moving along, we've got the custom path. Okay. Now, in the custom path, we're creating music for a project. There's a brief, there's a goal, there are constraints. Okay. Make it 60 seconds long. You must include the lyrics, new polyester blend cotton t-shirt is the softest you will ever feel. Okay. Well, you gotta work that in there in the most artistic way possible. But those are some of your constraints. The music's not necessarily going to exist first. The project need does. So you have to be aware of the project need, and your job is to answer it. I personally do a lot of work in this space in the custom path. Okay, where you work to a brief, you work for a client who wants a specific thing, and you act almost as kind of like the translator to take, okay, brand or company or agency, I hear what you want emotionally. I understand what the output looks like emotionally, musically, and I'm going to connect those two. Okay. This path resonates with musicians who are collaborative by nature. They want to work with a brand or a client. They understand that they're going to be taking that input. They understand the needs of the client, and they enjoy working towards a very clear and specific goal. Okay. Musicians who are constraint driven and enjoy how limits sharpen creativity rather than restrict it. Okay. That understanding of, hey, when I have a really specific creative goal, it's actually kind of creatively freeing because now I know where I'm headed and now I have this room to operate and I can try different things. And if I start veering off course, I know I'm veering off course because I can see I'm kind of moving away from my target and I can reel it back in. There are musicians who are honest about the trade-offs and who favor collaboration over autonomy and responsiveness over control. What I mean by that is there are some real honest trade-offs when you're doing custom work. It's really quick turnarounds. Okay, you do have to sacrifice some of your artistic vision. You always bring that. You always bring your authenticity, always. But you have to figure out a way to work that into the project needs. Okay, and you have to be readily available because you're going to get you're going to get an email that's like, hey, can we change the hi-hat sound in the next 20 minutes because the client doesn't like the hi-hat sound? Or can we swap out this synth for a guitar? Or can we change the vocal reverb? Right. So you just have to be kind of ready to jump on that stuff. There are a lot of needs. And the core business question here isn't just, hey, does this express who I am as an artist? That is important. I don't want you to think that there's no artistic integrity or vision that goes into the custom path. There's a ton, right? But the question is really, does this solve the project's needs? And the success is measured by how reliably and precisely you deliver on those project needs, right? Your reputation as a composer, your ability to understand and decode the brief. And Easy Song and Mad Records have done some events about decoding a brief. You could find those probably online somewhere. And if you're on the mailing list, you probably have those replays. But that's what your reputation is built off of. Okay. And we get real deadline pressure and we have a ton of revisions, like a lot of revisions. And you have to be able to do those revisions without getting too precious about it, right? If you love your guitar solo and you're like, man, I crush this guitar solo, and the client is like, we got to lose the guitar solo, you can't push back on that.
Here, let me jump in real quick.
Yeah, please.
So think about it. When you're actually given these core structures, you're given the assignment, it needs to sound like this, or they'll give you other examples and they'll kind of pick apart what you do. What Rob said earlier is that this composition, if you're making an original composition, the end product is a very good chance this is no longer your baby. Think about how like a book author, and then it goes into, let's just say, a Netflix series or a movie series. All the revisions that come from that actual book and all the rights that are sold off in a new media right, a lot of times that business or who you're dealing with, there's a good chance they're going to own the intellectual rights anyways with it. So it's like you're doing a class assignment, but at the end of the day, the teacher gets to own the homework at the end. So not being too precious about it, that is the world you're kind of stepping in. Because think about it, what you create is going to be their possession in any media right for any type of use for perpetuity. So a lot of times when, if there's any disagreements with this kind of thing or any pushbacks, it's like, if you can take the color and the emotions out of it, if that's the assignment, if you own the company and you're making your own product, obviously a whole different path. But when you do these syncs, it's like you're walking into this new world where you work so hard and it's like a work for hire. But at the same time, what you release and what platforms and what levels they'll bring you to, a lot of times it's worth that sacrifice so you can actually get other new music flowing out into the masses.
And part of what Aaron's talking about here and what we were talking about earlier is just the basic understanding of where are my rights going? Okay. How is this being licensed? How is this being used? And if you have questions about that, right, you obviously ask the client, but then you have a resource in a company like Easy Song, or like with Mad Records, we walk through this stuff in the curriculum. Just the basic understanding is going to empower you all to make better decisions and to move forward and get creative without being precious about it. Okay. So that's the important thing. And yeah, Julie's asking like, would I not get to own what I end up creating for the client in a custom scenario? Most of the times in a custom scenario, you're doing it as a work for hire. So sometimes there's like maybe an exclusive license in perpetuity, but most of the time you're creating something for the client to use. You get some back-end royalties, you get your rights. We don't need to get too far into the weeds. But yes, that's exactly what Aaron was talking about. Understanding that I'm creating this for someone else and setting it free.
And at the same time, even though if you may not own the actual master sound recording rights or the composition rights, those are going to be your two main rights there. Sometimes these companies will let you release your own single or your own EP, your own album, or there could be legal language stating all the alternative, everything else we've scrapped or suggested, those could be your possession too. So just because you don't own the final end product, it doesn't mean that there's any like concessions that you can push back on. A lot of times they have no problem. If they choose your song, there's nothing wrong with their brand name. If you're releasing that same master sound recording, there could be language to help you out in other ancillary distribution paths too. So it's not like it's all bad unless they actually state, nope, you're not allowed to release this as a single. But a lot of times this is a partnership, hopefully. And this probably won't be their only sync or their only
correct. Right? Like that long tail vision of like, great, this is a client that's going to keep coming back and you're going to be compensated for this. You also retain your writer share as long as it's not like they're saying explicitly they own everything outright. So there's upside, there's nuance to it, but the point is not to get nervous about it, just to say like, cool, I want to have a basic understanding of this stuff. Okay. So that's the custom path. I'm going to cover the library path really quickly and then move on because I want to show you an example of some sound stuff. And the library path functions as a utility. Okay, it's designed to be flexible, reusable, and emotionally consistent across many situations. You're building a catalog that libraries and editors want to rely on. So yeah, I really call this music as a utility, right? So music libraries that you might hear called stock music or production music, where it's just editors, content creators can quickly grab a piece of music. And this is really about volume of use and volume of music that you could put into this ecosystem. Now, who's this for? Really quickly, musicians who enjoy creating high volume of music and are comfortable playing the long game because it takes a while to see it come back, okay? Less upfront, it's more of a patient game. And as I noted here, and Aaron's going to talk about more later, AI, our friend AI, hello AI bots, is impacting this path, okay? And it's impacting it more quickly than the other paths in sync. And that's just on the math of pure output, okay? Because this used to be, hey, produce a high volume of music, get it out there, get it into the system, and then start generating. You cannot produce as much output as AI can. It's just the reality of what it is, okay? So what that means is not the death of the library path. It means the evolution of the library path. The composers doing well here approach it with intention and strategy and start bringing in a little bit of that custom element, right? forming relationships, talking with different curators, talking with editors. What can I get you directly, as opposed to just focusing on the output? Okay. So those are the three paths. And regardless of which path you're on, hopefully that kind of starts cooking some stuff in your mind. Be like, okay, yeah, I kind of see where I'm starting to fit in. But regardless of what path, there are some objective kind of similarities and throughputs that apply across the board. Because with music, listening to music is often very subjective, right? Like the dude says, well, that's just like your opinion, man. And there's a subjective nature to music, obviously, but there's an objective POV here. There's a foundational understanding of how things work and why they matter. Like this example of why commas matter. Let's eat grandma is much different than let's eat grandma, right? They're providing an objective impact on what we're doing, what we're saying, where our music is going. Okay. So with that understanding of this objective POV, I want to give you a couple of quick examples about how we use sound selection and reference tracks as a way to kind of objectively look at where our music is and understand what emotional impact it's making. Okay. So let me share my screen really quickly with you. Sound selection is one of the most impactful ways that we impact the emotional connection our music is making with an audience. So I'm going to play you this 15-second track. This is a 15-second track that I recently placed in a fast food commercial. What I want you to do while listening to it is just in the chat, throw in some descriptor words. Like what's the vibe? Not the genre. What's the vibe? What's the emotion it makes you feel? Okay, let's listen really quick. What do we got? Happy. Cool. We've got overwhelming happiness, happy, upbeat, groovy, happy, groovy, bouncy, strutting, celebratory. Bye now. On the move, high energy. Okay, great, right? So that's exactly what we're tapping into. And those are a lot of the descriptor words that were in the brief. High energy, fun, exciting, right? Upbeat, feel good, summer party, right? These, just by hearing it, right? By the groove, by the sound selection, we tap into this feel. Now I want to show you something, because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to press a button. And now I'm going to play the track with all default sound settings. Okay. So instead of like curating what the kick sounds like, curating what the snare sounds like, curating the guitar tone, the bass tone, the synths, I literally just went through and I grabbed whatever the default setting was on whatever basic drum plugin, guitar plugin, bass plugin, whatever plugin I could grab. Okay. This is still with live guitar and bass. We'll do another comparison in a second, but I just want you to notice how different it feels. You ready? Here we go. Okay, and just for comparison back to the original, and again, okay, do you see how we're losing some depth? We're losing some feel. We're losing some warmth, right? So that's, someone's pointing out the second one is too depressing. And you can really hear it and feel it in the drums. So if we solo the drums really quickly. This versus okay, it's more of a live sounding kit. The snare is longer. There's more reverb on it because this is just a default setting. So these are things, and this isn't about like buy an expensive plugin. This is a great drum plugin from Kontakt. Okay. It's about paying attention to the detail and saying like, oh, the tighter snare with less of a tail, that provides something that's a little more punchy. Punchy provides more energy. Punchy provides more bounce. Punchy feels more modern. Okay. So just dialing all of that stuff in and really making sure you're paying attention to that sound selection. Okay. This is like the objective, basic understanding of sound selection, of how you can improve your music, how you can be a better partner to someone, a client in the sync space. And that's what this is all about, being a better partner to folks in the sync space. So that's an example of sound selection. Now I want to play you an example really quickly of referencing and just listening to the difference and really pulling out things that say like, oh, okay, yeah, I hear how that shorter drum is punchier and provides more energy. When I get a reference track, or if I have a reference track that I love, let me see what I can pull out of that. And I do use an AI tool in order to do this. AI bots rejoice. And I do some stem separation. I'm going to show you how that's helpful, even when AI seems to fail us and isn't perfect. So here's this song. It's a cover of REM's The One I Love. It's by a band called Mirror Fury. Really beautiful cover. Let's take a quick listen.
This one goes out to the one I love.
Really, really pretty, right?
This one goes out to the one I left behind.
So what are some things that jump out at you about the track? Just like stylistically, any kind of production things that you're noticing, any vibes, feels, that type of things. Okay, melancholy, totally. Right? Very emotional. Warm, ambient, atmospheric. Yes. So the thing that jumps out to me is one of the things that jumped out first is how dry the vocals are. So many musicians I work with like really drench the reverb, especially if we need to create some emotion. But it's like, oh, wow, I hear the emotional impact that a dry vocal can make.
This one goes out to the one I love.
Wow. And then when we transition to the chorus, listen to the impact it makes because we go from dry to wetter.
The one I left
when we go there. Right now that reverb is like, whoa, this space is massive. This is so cool, right? Listening through objectively, you start to notice these things. Okay, so one thing I like to do is I take my song and I AI stem separate it into all the parts. So we can solo stuff. We can take the vocals and say like, oh, I'm curious, like, what does a vocal sound like on its
this
own?
One goes out to
what would it sound like with reverb?
This one goes out to the one I left behind.
And then you can see the different kind of emotional impact it makes. Okay. Another thing I want you to notice really quickly is here in the beginning, I'm going to flip back and forth between the original and the stem split. Here's the stem split. Okay. Here's the original. What do you notice is different? What's missing from the stem split? Piano's tucked in there. Noise, right? Noise is missing. And notice what that does to the emotion, how much different, how much more atmospheric, like you pointed out, the original, the non-stem split version is. Listen. Versus this. So it's like, wow, that's a really noticeable difference. So what I did was I went and I grabbed a ambient room noise. This is called Broken Fridge, right? And I added it in. So now listen to the original. Okay, the stem split without, and then I'll add it in. Without, with. Do you feel the difference that makes? So this is how using references, you could be like, oh man, if I add an ambience track into my song, oh wow, it creates this feeling of like this atmospheric depth, something that gives me a little bit of frisson and chills, right? That's how you incorporate this stuff into your music. And it's really cool just to like listen through and do all that. It also helps a lot with, I work with a lot of artists who really love making their drums really loud. So when we have, turn this down so I don't deafen everything. So if we crank the drums, right, they just feel less special. It's like, oh, that hi-hat's not as cool as I thought it sounded, right? So just showing the balance of things. And the point of this demonstration is just to really listen with intention, understand how things are emotionally impacting it, okay? Because once you have this foundational understanding, this is what makes you a better partner. So on the creative side, you say, great, I understand the emotional intention that's going into my music. And then once you have that in there, that's when you add in, and that's when you can really make sure you do the belt and suspenders check to say, do I understand the rights of my music? Do I understand what I'm even offering up? Like Aaron was talking about before, going into it with an understanding of like, okay, I know how I'm emotionally impacting, and I understand the basics about where the music is going. Can I even license this as a cover? Like where does it land? How do I go about doing this? That's where you want your mind to go to continue to be that solid partner. So kind of with that in mind, I want to hand off to Aaron to walk you through what all that looks like.
Yeah, what you've all heard right here is Rob creating his own snowflake, his own unique reinterpretation, reimagination of a very famous REM song. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful song. So I get this question a lot. If you do have the power to actually choose your own cover song, let's just say, or, I mean, again, this can also work the other way around. Someone has given you a title. They've said, yep, the original's great, but this is how we need it. Obviously, they're trying to make a new interpretation of an iconic song. So finding your own snowflake in your own interpretation, how can you separate yourself from what's ever been done in the past? That it's sometimes it's a huge monumental task. If you're given the freedom to actually choose a title, find one that hasn't been done properly as a cover, or it's never been released in a major advertisement, hasn't been in a major movie, or hasn't been even released in like several decades or something like that. That is what's going to make sure that like you get the attention you deserve on something like that. And there's a lot that goes with that decision, that creative decision in itself. I mean, the fact that when you make the selection, is it clearable in the first place? If you have a studio, you have a company that says, we need something from the 70s. We need this type of genre, this many beats per minute. We need this type of mood, this type of feeling. Come at us. Do you have anything in your current library or catalog? Do you want to create something? Number one, the one pitfall I always advise with people is if you go after a Mount Rushmore songwriter camp, like we're talking like a Beatles, a Stones, an Elvis, Prince, Michael Jackson, things like that. They've made some beautiful, beautiful versions, and there's no doubt that there's probably a lot of vaulted, beautiful covers. What they actually approve on the back end, you can make the most beautiful Thriller cover of all time. But to go through the original songwriter camp, to actually have that company clear it, could be a monumental task in the first place. Going after the Prince estate, which is actually right here, close to Minnesota here. There's a lot of denials that happen. So trying to find that snowflake, it doesn't mean you just have to choose one hit wonders, but and at the same time, it's not like you all know the vibe of what are difficult songwriter camps on what they approve and what they don't. Like what Rob said earlier, everyone has specialists. If you try to DIY yourself in a very unfamiliar jungle, like music rights and permissions, it's tough. It's tough to break in. It's tough to get an answer from Sony. It's tough to get an answer from Universal or even independent labels who are maybe not used to getting these type of sync requests, things like that. Talking to a group like ours, we can give you the vibe on, yep, this has been cleared. We have the data to back it up. We've actually had to do this with a variety of films or a variety of other advertisements and things like that. So if you're going to hand something in and you're going to start to put in all the painful hours and all the revisions and all that, because the company that you're dealing with may also not know how difficult that is to clear in the first place. So they could say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Then they come back a week later and says, oh my gosh, no, we were told by so-and-so's attorney, legal counsel, or their publishing administrator that this is going to get denied, or they want 5 times the budget than what we're offering.
Right.
Like that. So starting from scratch, starting right away and saying, I have these list of 10 songs I want to cover. And I got a really, really cool, like stripped down or sped up or reggae version or something like that I want to do. What's great is that, I mean, we'll talk to you 40 hours a week for free just to tell you, okay, what's the project about? What's your end goal? And you'll tell us, listen, I'm going to make this for so-and-so company. I have to make this for an ad. How licensable is this in the first place? We'll break down, okay, cool. If you know anything about the media rights and what's going to be released and what kind of product, or are you just having to demo things for a company? We'll give you the skinny on what you can and can't do in those scenarios for something like that. So
can I just jump in for a second and say how valuable that is? Like through the lens of what we were just talking about and being a valuable partner, if you're able to establish yourself as in the know and like displaying a real understanding of the space, like Easy Song is then your secret weapon, right? Where it's like, oh man, I'm working with Michael on this thing, and he let me know that might be a problem, and we didn't even think about that stuff. To have that kind of a strategic partner is such a value add. I just wanted to point that out because it really is such a great way to provide that value and establish yourself as a partner that brands and companies want to continue to work with.
100%. And I mean, think of all the different variables involved, and you don't even know all the variables. So this is why we do all these discovery questions with you in the first place. And like, for example, when a prominent songwriter unfortunately passes away or something like that, sometimes there's a freeze on the catalog. Sometimes that estate is still being sorted out. The publishing might be sorted out, or the publisher's made a conscious decision. Nope, we have our own projects in mind. There's exclusivities involved, and we're not going to go out and license everything. Think about, like, pay attention to commercials. Pay attention to what's being released out there in the first place. That's going to be your benchmark. For example, let's get away from the death comment for a second, and let's go into, like, for example, Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie comes out, Queen, or you have Rocket Man for Elton John, something like that. I get some wonderful live stage theatrical productions that like want to take on a catalog that's now prominent, or this has been a really, really big song in a couple Super Bowl ads and a couple modern, commercials, things like that. Like, for example, Little Boxes. Little Boxes is become a very, very popular cover. It was popular like 15 years ago. Now it's come back, that kind of thing. And sometimes with these publishers, when they already have these large other deals in place, there's a lot of times they will freeze out anything else that's trying to be third-party licensing or in a movie or in another ad, or the price tag has gone skyrocket high. So this is what I want to go back to on my original comment, finding that hit that no one else has really done properly. Or again, how can you separate your version of that song? And it hasn't, and again, you can use power of AI to find out all the history of television, all the commercials that have gone on. Find out who the original songwriters are. There's a lot of good resources out there. You can contact our company. There's also public databases like ASCAP and BMI that will show original songwriters. You can put that into your AI system, and they will flesh out. There's been this many commercials. The power over the last year alone is crazy on what you can research. So do a little bit of homework before you hit the studio. It's going to pay off.
Totally.
A lot of times I will have studios or record label managers, and they've spent 10, 20, 30, 50K in the studio or something like that. And they've made the most beautiful masterpiece the world's ever seen. I'll listen to it and I'm just like, wow, you are dripping with talent. This is fantastic. I'm going to be the guy of bad news. Do you have this much money? Do you have this budget? Know that, okay, the David Bowie estate can be very picky. The George Michael estate can be very picky at times, or they can be very open-minded. And again, at the end of the day, the other variable is it's like an audition too. Even if it hasn't been released before, have a very, very strong demo or end product. And again, you're like, well, Aaron, how do I do that without spending all the money time in the studio? Well, sometimes just having a rough demo, hearing the vocals, hearing what you've composed, making MIDI, actually writing new creative lyrics to it, giving those bare bones could be enough to say, okay, let's continue the dance, let's continue the discussion. So when you do get a company that gives you an assignment and they say, this is the type of energy and this is what we need for something like this, again, at the end of the day, it is their job. And if it's their audio product to clear, that's their responsibility. But again, if they let you say, okay, all right, kid, we're handing you the keys. Give us, you've made 5 awesome demos. We want to choose this one. And then they send you the contract and the agreement and all that kind of thing. So know who we're dealing with on the original songwriters. That's the composition side of that cover song. At the same time, if you are an ad agency, if you are getting into the music supervision or want to get into something like that, and you're looking at original master sound recordings or third-party covers, understand that that's its own living, breathing asset. You have your composition side, which is always going to be your licensing oxygen, and then you're going to have your master sound recording asset. These are 2 assets combined. If you're using audio you don't own or something like that, you have to identify who that record label owner is. And that is not easy to identify. That's a lot of times when my company comes in. And again, both sides, they usually want equal value. This is what we call most favored nation rate. So when we get into pricing and what type of media rights cost what, the very first thing I ask is, where did you get your audio? And again, the next point I want to bring up is, well, if your audio is derived from AI, and what I mean by that is you're not necessarily using AI as a toolkit, you're actually using AI embedded within your own master sound recording. Be careful, especially with cover music. A lot of major publishers, they have started to put this into their quotes. They have started to put this into their boilerplate agreements, which they do not want to change. It is a mountain to get a Sony to try to change any type of legal language on their existing templates. But a lot of times they say, you have to guarantee me that there is no AI inside this use. Why? Well, think about it. If they go out and license that master sound recording or that composition, and let's just say later on there's technology to identify that that's the AI source that you used, well, that goes on right on the licensee's liability, their responsibility. That's called potential damages. Potential damages equals money out of your pocket, whoever is licensing the music. So they're very protective over this. There aren't current laws that state that you can't use AI. So this is a lot like, nope, we're going to go to the actual source. So let's just say Sony Music Publishing, for example. Even if there isn't a law against it, they have their own policy. They can say yes or no to any sync permission. So if they state clearly that there can be no AI used in your actual end product, they are serious about it. That's what can bite you later on. We're talking potentially even years down the road when you've maybe forgotten about that track. So AI hasn't been completely flushed out yet. God knows that there's a lot of legal action happening as we speak with it. So when we're in this kind of fertile ground kind of territory, be conservative with your blueprint and how you're going to actually create your own beats, instrumentals, vocals, or what you're sourcing, or be forthright about it. Transparency will sell in this game for decades and decades, and Rob can definitely attest to this. Transparency wasn't always the key with licensing deals. Now, these publishers, they don't like to mess around. If you have like a sync brief and they say, if they don't even broach the topic of AI, don't assume it's okay. You cannot make that assumption. If you're making an original composition that contains no other copyrighted elements, and we're talking even like 3 to 5 seconds of a melody that you found in a 1940s recording in another country or something like that, those are still composition rights. Those are still, if you're, or even an old master sound recording, if you embed that and you've used AI to actually replicate that, and you did not clear the composition rights or any master rights, that's when you can get into trouble. That's when these nasty lawyers, it doesn't even get to court. It's not even arbitration. It is like a very expensive speeding ticket. And their lawyers are on payroll, not retainer. Watch out. So I don't want to necessarily put the fear of God in everybody with something like this, even though I am. But it's so new. Be conservative. Be transparent about what you're actually using. That's how you form long-tailed partnerships like we were talking about earlier.
Totally. We do a monthly masterclass for the Mad Records Collective. And our last one, we had a former executive from Netflix come in, and he was saying the exact same thing, that he was just talking with the head of music at a really big video game company, who was saying, like, it's in the agreement. It's now in the agreement. Like, that it's not like, well, just let us know. It's like, no. So yeah, like Aaron was saying, this is not meant to scare anybody. It's to encourage you to understand more and just be aware of what you're doing, right? The more you can wrap your arms around it a little bit, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to go get a law degree to understand this. You just have to understand, okay, I understand there are limitations, so that's going to allow me to operate more clearly, more effectively, and more intentionally.
Absolutely. Last point I'll bring up is when you do a cover version, again, doing it word for word, precise, again, that is a thing. To actually keep lyrical and melodic composition intact, that is important. If you are going to take a left turn somewhere and you're going to do an interpolation, meaning I'm going to take even my own original, I'm going to take my own original verse, I'm just going to embed it into that famous song, and it's going to be just a little bit. That is something to think about on what the publisher policies are, what the songwriter policies are. If you're, again, there's nothing wrong with you singing it. The vocal harmony maybe a little bit different than the original. You heard the REM version. It's a very slow, beautiful, stripped down version of it. The actual melody of it is, at the end of the day, everything is still recognizable compared to the original. So it can still be considered an actual standard cover version. So if you're going to go release your own record, your own single on something like that, it's okay to take a metal song, let's just say from the early 80s, and then you actually want to make a reggae version or a singer-songwriter folk version of something like that, or country. That's fine to mix genres, but is the basic fundamentals of the melody the same? So that's something else you should blueprint outside of the AI, outside of the licensable content. Because at the end of the day, if you are going to take a sharp left turn, same identical lyrics, same vocal harmony, but you're introducing a brand new melody you created, we are now going into what we call derivative use. Derivative use is direct publisher deal only. Whatever you research and it says that's okay is wrong. If you're introducing a brand new melody into an existing song, only the publishing administration can actually give you that permission. That is a direct deal with them. Sometimes that involves acceptance, rejection. Sometimes it involves acceptance with a fee. Sometimes there's conditions involved. So there's all these other variables. That's why you talk to an expert with something like that. And just know it's not impossible to clear. It definitely depends on the songwriter, Cam. But there's some publishers that are open for business, happy to do it, and they actually want to collaborate with you sometimes. And then there's some that are very, very strict. And again, it's like a country club. We don't change the lyrics to Bob Dylan or Prince or Michael Jackson or something like that. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But ask questions early before you invest in the studio and the time.
Yeah. Really making sure that you understand, and back to like what Aaron was saying, understanding what the needs of the publishers are, and will it even clear in the first place? is such an important thing. We do a challenge inside of Mad Records that we work with Easy Song on, called the Run for Cover Challenge, where we work directly with publishing companies that send us a list of songs because they're like, yes, these will clear. We know that the rights holders are good to go. You can change them. You can reimagine them, and we're good to go. So we kind of have that basic understanding going in, and then folks who are part of the Mad Records collective then will go to Easy Song, say, hey, here's my song, what do I need to release this, and they'll get the appropriate license to then release it online.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, do your research. There's a lot of derivatives. Again, pay attention to major ads, major and even middle level films that come out, and you'll see, oh my gosh, that's not the original lyrics. Something got approved in the past. Yeah. Okay, is the door open? Are the floodgates open, or is it just for that one project alone? But someone said yes in the first place. So doing that research, when people have reinterpreted or introduced original composition, they might have given away their playbook and say, great, we just need to hear what you're doing. We need to know the media rights. And this is a nominal fee. And maybe we'll work with the budget that you define and that you state. So again, pay attention to what's been majorly released in the past.
Yeah, listening objectively like that and really paying attention is super important. Aaron, Giddy was asking, what constitutes a brand new melody? Is there an amount of deviation that the original melody is that's acceptable or not? In your experience, what have you seen is kind of like that line?
Yeah, at the end of the day, even if you're introducing, and let's think of song in terms of percentages. And when we're talking about melody, and let's just say it's an original copyright that actually has lyrical content involved. First thing I always, the stage one is to remove both lyrics from the original and your version. And think about a percentage. Is it 95% of the way? Even if it's 95%, you're introducing 5% new melody, maybe a new intro, a new outro. Technically, you cannot release that without the publisher's consent. That being said, here's what I'll say, because let's talk about jazz, for example. We did this on another webinar too. Jazz musicians, for example, we're talking about freestyling. We're talking about doing maybe a little different trumpet solo or something like that. Jazz is built on this type of fluid concept that is not always the same as the original. So how much liberty are you taking? Here's what I'll say. If you cannot recognize a minimum of like 75 to 85% of the original in that song, it's a very good chance that, okay, you really do need to get that cleared. If the melody if you're doing a guitar solo that's going a little bit, okay, that guitar solo by Eddie Van Halen was going 2 minutes and you're doing 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay, that kind of goes into more musicology of like, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give you the conservative answer. I'm going to probably listen to it, but I'm going to tell you, I'm a third party just like you. Neither you and I do not own this, and we are not the rights holders. We're not the gatekeeper. And sometimes it's just sending it to them to say, yep, we consider that a standard cover. Nothing, no action needed. At the same time, they might say, oh no, you are taking a very important song of ours in our catalog, and I hear a lot of new melodic content in here. Even if it's only 5, 10, 15% of the song, that's still a new percent that wasn't part of the original. So how you actually differentiate, remove the lyrics, you're going to have many ears actually listen to it. And at the end of the day, we're all just subjective opinions until you would actually go to the source. So if you feel strongly about it, you're about to get signed, this is about to be on record, damage has been done, you've already recorded it, it's ready for release, that kind of thing. Wait before you release. That 5, 10, 15% could be a big deal to that. So melodies are tough. They're tough. Lyrics are very cut and dry for the most part. But melodies, is it recognizable? Are the fundamentals there, from the original?
Yeah. Lucity's asking, Aaron, what about changing the key?
Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with changing a key, speeding up or slowing down or something like that. It's still considered a standard cover.
Awesome. What other questions you guys got? I love that you guys have all these questions. Let's field some more questions. And as we do so, just to mention to you guys, these types of info sessions and really making sure that you're understanding, asking the questions that maybe you're too embarrassed to ask about, or like, I don't really understand. I feel like I'm supposed to know how this works. This is all complicated stuff, right? That's why there are experts that exist in this field. That's why Aaron has Easy Song. That's why Mad Records Collective exists. That's why all these things are there. So we really encourage you to ask questions and do all that. I'm going to share a link in the chat also. We're currently running a 10-week sync sprint at Mad Records where we talk about all of these different questions, and we have a 10-week curriculum that we walk through week by week, addressing everything from the 3 paths that we covered, how to think objectively about your creative, how to really dial in your production, how to think about the licensing, how to ask the right questions, understanding the ecosystem that we all operate in here in Sync. So I'm going to put that link here in the chat. If you're curious and interested, go check it out. It's a landing page with some info. Book a call to chat about it. No pressure, super easy. But putting that in the chat.
What I love what Rob and Michael do here, they're coming at it from the same perspective. They started out very similarly. There's a lot of origin stories that start out the same. So you have 2 very big success stories right here. I have no musical talent whatsoever. I'm a music snob. I like what I like, and I have to cross paths a lot. But the fact that you're from the Mad Records perspective to help the independent producer, the independent musician, all, again, what they're giving you is gold. This is, I cannot emphasize this enough. The fact that they've lived and breathed exactly the path that you're doing. I'm the licensing nerd at the end of the day. These are the magic makers. These are the Willy Wonkas here. And it's not a manual that just goes with that. So ask lots of questions, even outside of the webinar. Be a sponge. No such thing as a dumb artistic or a dumb licensing question. There isn't. It's a complex jungle. Always will be.
I'll add one thing on the 10-week sprint. I have to give a bunch of credit to Rob and Aaron because when I quit my job in finance and I decided I wanted to get into music, I had a lot of intimidation because I didn't want to seem like an outsider, and I didn't want to seem like I'm asking stupid questions, and I didn't know the way the landscape works. And you can ask Rob. To this day, I still ask him a million questions about sync because none of it makes sense to me still. It's still confusing and complicated. And so what we did with this 10-week sprint is really create a place where it's like, whether you know a little bit about sync, whether you know a lot, whether you know nothing at all, this is a place to come in and get to work with me and work with Rob and actually figure out what your specific path is into the industry, like what's unique about you and how that matches up with the sync licensing landscape, instead of just signing up for a place where you can submit to briefs or something like that, actually building a career based around the things that you want to do as an artist or a producer. So if you guys are interested, I'll continue to post a link in the chat. You can schedule a consultation to talk about it with Rob, and he can kind of go through it and see if it's a good fit for what you've got going on. So, but yeah, you guys are great at this. You make it so accessible and easy to understand. That's, I guess, why you're called Easy Song, Aaron. Yes. Good marketing.
All right, let's jump back into some questions here. Are these only applicable to covers? How about new compositions? So yeah, I mean, Aaron can confirm, but we're talking about when someone else owns the composition, like Aaron was talking about earlier, the notes, the melody, the lyrics that make up the song. When someone else owns it, then you have to start taking all this stuff into consideration.
And at the same time, protect your own rights. When you actually compose and write a song and you actually record your own master, hence you're your own record label, hence you're kind of self-published, your own publisher, those 2 concepts. The way of needing to be signed by record labels and having publishers administer all your rights, there's a lot of people that DIY it. Bare bones, if you didn't know already, a very important part of this to actually cement your work are 2 avenues in our country, at least. Number 1 is just belonging to either ASCAP or BMI. Anyone can sign up. Everything that you register, you are agreeing that you actually own what you're actually registering. And there's nominal membership fees, but it acts as a public database for music supervisors. If they hear you on Spotify or hear you on another DSP, the fact that they can look you up and say, okay, they're registered in this system, great. We want to choose that song. If you are not registered in a performing rights organization like ASCAP and BMI, or let's just say you're from Spain and you don't belong to SGAE, or you're a British songwriter. You don't belong to PRS or Canadian, SOCAN. Being in your own domestic PRO, performing rights organization, that's like bare bones for mailbox money, or at the very least, your mark on the industry that you wrote something, you own something. And if you want to contact me to use my music, I have a public database that states that. Now, the other step of it is if you are a U.S. songwriter, this is the U.S. Copyright Office. It's actually copyrighted, where you could actually prove in court that you own those intellectual assets, you own the composition, and if you recorded it, you actually own the master sound recording. You own both assets, and again, they vet you out. The feds will make sure that everything is up in line. And again, we do have a program that we help out independent musicians for U.S. Copyright Office registration. But those are your two where you don't need an audition to do it. I could write I could write a song with no, again, even if it's not going to do anything, I can actually have something that's like a high school or college diploma. I can actually, and I go register it. And again, I can pass this on to my kids and I say, hey, look what I wrote. Is that it generated $0 or it's, whatever it is. But getting your actual work registered is a very important step if you're getting serious about this,
Yeah. And real quick example, we ran one of our run for cover challenges. Our artist got a license from Easy Song to make sure that everything was registered. She had the right license. She released it. A music supervisor found it online, checked everything out, made sure everything was legit, and licensed it for a season finale of a song, for a season finale of a show. And yeah, like having that social proof and really, again, making sure that you just understand the basics of what's going on is so crucial. All right. Speed round.
To piggyback on that comment, the one that got selected, if you're in any TV or film or media and you do hit the lottery with something like that, every country is being distributed. You as a songwriter have actual public performance rights and royalties you should be collecting in all areas, everywhere it's being distributed. So yes. Again, you never know what's going to hit. And if you're not registered, that goes into black box.
Yes.
You do not get paid if you are not registered.
Totally. And that's one of the things that we actually talk about in the curriculum, where it's like, all right, it takes 15 minutes to just kind of do some research, look it up, see how to do it, register, and then you're there. And again, if you have questions, you can reach out to an Easy Song team and talk to them and say, like, do I need to do this? How do I do this? Where should I go? And just making sure that you have support around you is really important. All right. Rapid rounds. So changing a genre would still be considered a cover. Yep. As long as you're using someone else's composition, that's a cover. So Easy Song is a good entry point to jumping into sync licensing for sure. Aaron, you want to tell them about like the briefs you guys provide and things like that?
Yeah, if you get on our mailing list, we do offer sync briefs of music soups, other companies that are looking for music briefs. At the same time, we're very accessible. If you just have general questions about why is this a thing, or is this illegal, or what the do's and don'ts, or again, we are not your technical legal counsel, but we can definitely give you definitions in music rights education or something you're looking to do in the future. Again, the sync world is an umbrella with a lot of different tentacles. So yeah. We're going to probably ask you lots of questions, but that's a good thing. People, if you go contact another institution and they're not asking you lots of questions and they're trying to give you definitive answers, run the other way, because there's so many variables that we need to know.
Totally. And another great reason why Easy Song and Mad Records work so well together, one of the things that we do on our mentorship calls is walk through sync briefs, right? Help to decode them. So if you get a sync brief from Easy Song, bring it to a mentor call, bring it to a feedback call. Let's walk through it and make sure that you're submitting with your best foot forward. All right. Sean asks, if you have a cover which is good enough to get placed in sync, how do you go about finding out where to place it? So yeah, Sean, like that's one of the golden questions, right? The big questions. There's lots of ways to do it. The sync curriculum that we've created as part of the 10-week sprint, we have lists of potential partners. I just want to be really clear and transparent. The list is not the answer. Okay. And there's a lot of people out there who will be like, oh, buy my list of music supervisors or music library companies, and then you have the key to the industry. It's very helpful to have, but unless you know the licensing part of it, unless you understand what rights you have and is your catalog clean, unless you understand the emotional impact that your music is making, is it industry standard as far as quality? How do you reach out to these people, right? That's the most important thing. And that we cover all of that, and that's all in the curriculum. But really learning about, okay, what am I providing for an end client? That's going to be the most important thing. Then you can find the resources. There are the resources out there, right? But really understanding more about what you're doing, what your music, how it's an asset to people, that's going to be your most important thing. Aaron, I'm curious about the licensing implications of an instrumental cover, removing all the lyrics. Sorry if this is asked already. I stepped away for a second.
We always survey every single major and middle level publisher every year to know exactly if there's any new policies, anything that, if you're just talking about releasing your own single, removing lyrics. All major publishers we work with, which are all of them, they all accept instrumental only covers. We've had old regimes that have come in and said, no, you need to actually clear this with us. But again, that was kind of a minority at the time. And it literally was just one department's manager that we found out from a major publisher. But again, so I probably shouldn't have even brought that up. I won't mention any publishing names on that one. But no, at the end of the day, if you're doing an instrumental only, sticking with the same fundamentals, yes, perfectly acceptable to do US compulsory or any standard mechanical license. No problem.
Licity, sorry if I mispronounced your name, is asking, are there limitations about licensing your same original song to more than one place? So from my input, that really depends on the exclusivity of the deal. So if you're placing it in one spot, if there is exclusivity, meaning you can't place it somewhere else, then the answer is no. There's also different levels of exclusivity. We actually cover this in the curriculum as well, but it's like I did a sync once where I was exclusive to salad dressing and condiments. So I could not license it to different salad dressing or condiments. I could license it to a car if I wanted to, but not salad dressing condiments. So there's category exclusivity, there's broad exclusivity, or there's no exclusivity. If there's no exclusivity, go and license it. But to Aaron's point, right? If you license it out there, a brand might hear like, oh, that version's already out there. We want to use something new. We want to do something fresh. So being aware of what's out there, very, very, very important.
Also, if you are at the negotiating table and they're very into you, let's just say you have any hint of leverage at all. If they're going to pull the exclusivity card on you, usually that kicks up the fees. Usually. Yes. If they're going to
exactly
own
right.
content and no one else can actually license it, you can't go shop as anybody else. Great. There's always a number that goes to it. That's what the money is for.
Totally. Timothy was asking about the artist path and finding licensing opportunities. As you might guess, Timothy, we cover that in the curriculum as well. But one of the things you want to do there, especially for the artist path, finding a good sync rep is something that we recommend. So researching that, we provide you with lists. But again, the list is not the answer. Do your own research, understand where you fit in. And that's what we recommend for the artist path. Barbara's asking, I work for a chorus developing musical theater shows. Do you help groups with sync licensing in that space, Aaron?
Yeah, grand rights, live stage theatrical rights, number one. If it's actually used for your theatrical production, huge business for us. We work with so many globally, not just North America. We work with all territories. But if you're going to be actually recording your live stage musical or play or dramatic presentation, not only do you need your grand rights, but you also need your video streaming rights or whatever media that you're using to sync with. So a lot of times this is a rude awakening for theater companies because the more media rights you ask for, the more expensive the fees. A lot of times we try to bundle all this together, get your defined budget. Sometimes they stamp it. Sometimes they say, nope. Sony has a theatrical license clearance team that we have to go through. Very kind people. And then we have our video sync team. More kind people, but a separate department, separate boilerplate agreement, which means a separate fee.
Yep. Okay, Fido's asking, how much does it cost for the 10-week sprint? Fido, it's $900 for the 10 weeks, so like $90 a week. And we have payment plans available as well. That information's all on the link. Put it in the chat again. But yeah, you can go and check that out. Is there a recommended way to manage songs you've written but don't plan to record or perform yourself? Um, sure, that's like thinking about being, even signed to a publisher or acting as a writer. For sure, that's just a little bit of a shift. Something we promote a lot at Mad Records is collaboration. So finding people to collaborate with. Hey, I'm a writer. I'm looking for people to kind of help bring this vision to life.
I actually see this in the country world a lot, especially around Nashville. There's a ton of stuff from the vault, but it doesn't mean you can't register that. If it is a finished product, and let's just say this, I'm not the right voice for this, but it could be for your future country or whatever star that's going to be, or whoever wants to use it. It doesn't mean you can't register that, and you really should register that. If another label picks it up and it's not registered already, now you could be 6 to 12 months behind on the release. And there's companies that specialize in all PRO territories to register that work. So just because you've written something, if you're happy, you're proud of it, but you're not the right vocal or the instrumentalist to do it, no problem. If you already have ASCAP BMI or whatever your domestic PRO, still register it regardless. That doesn't mean that all the music on ASCAP and BMI has actually been released. A lot of times, that is just the way people can find you. They find your composition in the first place. I just like to make that distinction.
Yeah. Jordan asks, which PRO is better for the artist path? To be totally honest, it doesn't matter. What I would recommend is talk to people, talk to friends, talk about their experiences. You're going to find a mixed kind of gathering of experiences, but just, see what folks, how they weigh in. And obviously it's going to be different territory to territory, but in my experience, like the collection differences are nominal, and you really want to make sure that you have, you're focusing on the customer experience.
As the independent artist, focus on customer service.
Yep.
There's some, and again, in people outside of the U.S. don't really have a lot of choices. We're kind of weird here in the U.S., like a lot of things, but we actually have choices. You also have CSAC, but that's invite only. That's a different process. GMRs for a lot of heavy hitter songwriter camps, things like that. But ASCAP and BMI, like Rob said, it's the same. But again, test them out. How I value a music rights company or any type of music company is how fast and how accurate is their customer service? Are they friendly people? Do they actually want to take my questions, or am I wasting their time? Well, that's really where you're probably going to base where you want to go. And if it takes 4 weeks to get an answer, think of all the other questions you might have with your PRO.
Totally. One of the things we actually talk about in the curriculum, it's like a running joke now. One of the things we do talk about in the curriculum, though, is like your warm network, and do some research. See, do you have any connections to someone who might work at ASCAP or BMI? Reach out to them, talk to them. Having that direct in is something that's helpful. But to Aaron's point, definitely, do a little research, look into the kind of customer service of it. Tom's asking, what are some music library resources? Again, we kind of covered that a little bit. The list is not the answer. We provide some, but that's not necessarily a thing. ASCAP, BMI. Are there specific companies looking for Christmas music and Christian music? For sure. There's specialties for everything. And just doing a little bit of diving in and checking it out. If, to your point though, Andrea, if it's not original and but music in the public domain. So if it's in the public domain, right, Aaron, you might want to chime in a little bit on this, then you can do your version, but make sure you check, because you'd be surprised which ones are and are not in the public domain.
Yeah, you're basically, and it also varies from country to country. Everyone has their own laws and what they consider public domain. But you can do a free search. If you go to easysong.com, it's clear cover songs. You can set up a fake mechanical project. You can stop at checkout. Within 1 to 2 business days, one of our team members will search it. We have zillions of songs. We have to evaluate zillions of catalogs all the time. We will have real humans that actually audit your search, and we will send you search results. And we'll say, nope, public domain, that's traditional. Be careful of the copyrighted arrangements of famous public domain music. Again, the first thing I always bring up is House of the Rising Sun. Great if you're using the lyrics, public domain, but if you're using that, I believe it's Alan Price's Oregon Solo, there is new melodic introductions with that 1960s Animals version. So, and then there's famous, classical works, and there's famous classical arrangers that have made world famous, and that's copyrighted. So which version are you using? Are you really using that old song from the 1800s or pre 1930 or something like that? But pdinfo.com is another great resource. Otherwise, my team, we have all the public domain titles already registered in our system, and we can spit those right back out to you quick.
Is copywriting in the US office a requirement? In the UK and some areas in Europe, it is not.
No.
It is not a requirement. Adil is asking, is creativity really important in the industry, or mastering a song? So kind of the creativity or how it sounds, they're both very important. Listen, if you have a really creative and amazing production on it, but it doesn't sound like it's up to industry standard, you got to, especially in sync, the end client is not going to make that leap and be like, oh, I see how if we change this or like got a proper mix on this or rebalanced it, it would feel better. They're just going to say this either sounds good or it doesn't. So both are important, but it's just like finding that balance. Sean is asking about the sync sprint. We covered that. Do you cover how to pitch songs I created to artists that might be interested in covering the songs? So that's talking about the publishing pitch. Yeah, we talk about how to work with publishers a little bit, and that's something that we would cover directly on mentorship calls if there are specific questions with that. Does Matt do a deep dive on PROs? I have a good amount of tunes in my catalog, but haven't seen an ROI with BMI on the projects I've released. Any insight on this? So we talk about PROs a bunch, and I'm sure Aaron will have some thoughts as well. But the most important thing, Bradley, and a misconception I see a lot, is PROs aren't collecting any royalties unless it's being performed publicly, right? Performing rights organizations, unless they're being performed publicly on TV, in a bar or restaurant, in a movie, there's nothing to collect. So unless you've put them out and they're being performed publicly, it makes sense that you probably wouldn't have seen a return with them. Anything to add on that, Aaron?
Absolutely. Test out your PRO. I bring this up on other calls, but if you're a performing artist, you actually tour or you just do a couple shows a year, talk to the venue owner. Some venue owners don't know anything about performing rights organizations when they should, and turning in cue sheets and quarterly reports about what copyrighted music's actually been played in their establishment. In our country, it's definitely a law. There's spies from ASCAP and BMI that will go into bars and grills.
Totally.
Oh, it's a total thing. It's
PRO narcs. Yeah.
PRO narcs, exactly. But to my point is, well, turn in your own cue sheet. You can find free, accessible, like ASCAP and BMI, they will share these resources with you. Turn in the cue sheet of you performing your own music in these establishments. Test them out, or you turn it into the venue owner. They're a legitimate owner, and they say, "Yep, we have to do this all the time. Here's a cue sheet. You got to fill up your timestamps, all the music you're playing, yada yada yada." It's basic information of just it's almost like kind of going to the like getting a license or something like that, but you're just filling out simple information and they're turning it into their local PRO, which ASCAP and BMI, very common. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It does take a minute to actually get your mailbox performing rights, but you should be getting a check or an ACH deposit of something versus nothing. Sometimes be careful, watch the PROs. If they're going to hold on to, let's just say, the first $25 or $50 or $100 of that, sometimes there's a threshold and you have to, but ask your PRO questions about, if I were to perform my music in this many, they will break down what those royalties are and what you would be owed and these thresholds. Ask them questions. This goes back to my point about good customer service. And again, test these companies out. I love it when people test our system out. And again, to me, speed sells.
There you go. Yeah. And here's something you could test out with Easy Song. What happens when you create a custom sync song, but have never had enough time to register the work with copyright.gov? Well, you can reach out to Easy Song, and I'm sure they can help you with that. So, and then finally, we've got a double shout out here from Richard, who said, I found Easy Song easy to work with. When I had questions or even questioned their results, they worked with me and made it a pleasurable and helpful experience. Thanks, Aaron. And another shout out. Easy Song is the best from Meg. It's a love fest. It's all the things. And that's that, everybody. Good times. So again, I'm going to post this one last time. Reminder, we've got the 10-week sync sprint going on. If you've enjoyed this session, if you're curious to learn more, if you want that hands-on mentorship to help you kind of figure out your path forward in the music industry, whether you're specifically interested in sync or not, just building your career as an artist and using sync as a way to understand the larger ecosystem, check us out, book a call, see if it makes sense. And yeah, we'll be doing more of these again. The Easy Song Mad Records collabo lives on.
It's not over. We're still dating. We're far down the dating pipeline. And just a heads up to everybody that enrollment in that 10-week sprint closes on the 31st. So if you guys are interested, make sure you click the link and schedule a consultation with Rob at ASAP. And then for all of your licensing needs, go to, is it easysong.com? Is that the best place, or what's the best place to go, Aaron?
Yep, you go easysong.com, or you can also email us directly at support@easysong.com. Otherwise, it's all on our website, and we're very accessible, 40 hours a week.
Awesome. Yeah, and let us know what you guys, we'll have the replay of this event sent out later today. And let us know what you guys want more of these workshops on in the future too, because they've been a big success so far. So we're happy to continue to do them and hopefully provide some value for you guys. So thank you guys. You guys crushed it as always.
You guys all crushed it.
Fun
Thank you.
times.
All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good week, everybody.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
See you later.